Hi, class. We're going to get into one of the little bit more complicated formulas for volume. And this is going to be the volume of pyramids. Now, this looks like a sideways pyramid because that's the only way that I could draw it. But you guys know I'm not an artist. So let's jump right into it. The formula for solving your volume of a pyramid from your formula sheet under surface area and volume, it says it is volume equals 1/3 times base times height. Okay, so let's look at something that has a height of 12, and we'll just say this is centimeters, okay? And a base that has side is 8. Now you're thinking, how can I have a base that's an S? So let's figure this out first. To figure out the base is the bottom section. That's the square, right? And then from there, you're drawing your triangle sections here. Once again, don't look at my drawings, but this is how we're doing this, okay? So our base, we first need to figure out the base. The base is this square section down here at the bottom. Now, how do we figure this square thing out here at the bottom? We figure it out like we would a square, okay? Like it has a square bottom. And we're going to do the perimeter of, not the perimeter, correction. We are going to do it as the, I'm missing the word here, area. I'm looking for the word area. So we are going to do it just as if we had a square and we had one side equaled 8. How would we figure out the area of that? So if we were to look at our formula sheet for the area of a square, it is side squared, okay? So before we can even start working on the rest of our formula, we need to figure out what our base actually is. And our base is side squared. So you can do this formula one of two ways. You can figure out that the base is 8 squared, which equals 64, or you can do your formula as volume equals 1/3 times the side squared times height, however you would like to do it. I'm going to do it this way because this is how our formula sheet has it. Okay, so I'm going to do it the way that the formula sheet has it. So let's go ahead and figure out our base first. So our base is going to equal side squared. So we need to really add this to our formula. Okay, so now that we know that this is side squared, our volume is going to equal 1/3 because that is part of our formula. Our base is side squared, so that's 8 squared, which is going to give us 64. Okay, times our height of 12 because the height was already given to us. So we simply plug this into the calculator exactly like we see it. We use our ND key on our calculator to put in that fraction there, and we do it times 64 times 12, and that gives us 256. So we said it was centimeters, so this would be 256 centimeters. Okay, let's work on another one real quick. I'll give you a second. You can pause this and copy that down if you want to. Let's plug in some different numbers here and work on that. So let's say that our height is 11, and let's say that our side is 15, and this is going to be feet, okay? Well, what do we do first? First, we're going to figure out what is our side squared. So 15 squared. Now, this is not something I can do in my head. So 15 squared is going to be 225 equals our base. Okay, so now we can start plugging these in here. 1/3 times my base, which is 225, times my height, which is 11. And let's go ahead and plug that into the calculator. And we have 1/3 times 225 times 11, and that gives us 800 feet, and it would be feet cubed, but you would have that on your answer sheet. So this would be our answer, 825 feet for this triangle. Okay, now to further confuse you. Now I will tell you this is not one that you will get a lot on the test as far as the problems that we will be working out on the test. This is the surface area of the pyramid. Basically, the surface area of a pyramid is the same as the area of the square base on the bottom, okay? And then the area of the four triangular sides. So if you were going to carpet this entire pyramid, top to bottom, you would cover four triangles, right? Because it would have to have a triangle on this side, has to have a triangle on this side, triangle on this side, and the back side. And then it also has to have this square base down at the bottom. Forgive the drawing, but I hope you get what I'm saying. So if you have a pyramid, it has four sides, and each four sides goes down like this, okay? And then you would have the other four sides on this, but you need that bottom part. So basically, it's the area of the entire bottom part, the area of this side, the area of this side, the area of this side, and the area of this side. Now, the way to figure this out is, this is a little bit more difficult because they have this P and this S in here, okay? Now, the P is kind of confusing because you're thinking, what in the world is the P, right? If you look at your formula sheet on the bottom of the surface area and volume section, it says P equals perimeter of base with area B. So let's go ahead and start breaking this down into sections. We already know we're going to have a half, okay? Now, if our P is the perimeter of the base, the P is 18 is one side, so it would be 18 plus 18 plus 18 plus 18, because each side is going to be 18. So our S in this case, or I'm sorry, our P in this case, let me make a note down here, is going to equal 72. Okay, because that is 18 plus 18 plus 18 plus 18. This is the perimeter of our base. You can't really read that, but hopefully you'll remember that this says 18 plus 18 plus 18 plus 18, or 18 times 4. Okay, so that's our P. It's going to be 72. Now, what's our S? Okay, our S is basically the one side, which is 18, right? And our one side of the 18, this is actually the side. Okay, and once again, like I told you, this is going to be a confusing section because we have S equals 18 for our side. But in this part of the formula, this S actually stands for slant height, or your length. Okay, so your slant height or your length is going to be this 13.5. Now, once again, I know this is super confusing, but this is just the way that they did it. So I can't explain why this formula is the way that it is without going into too much detail, but basically you're doing the area of the surface area of four triangles and the base on the bottom. And this is the formula that they do that. It seems super confusing, and it is, but if you can just figure out what each one means, then you'll be good to go. So we're going to times it times 13.5. Okay, and then we have our last one, which is our base. And we know that we figure out the base of this. Okay, so the base of this is what we're missing now, what we're working on. So the base is going to be, we remember from the last one that maybe this was in the rectangle, maybe not, but our base is always going to be the area of our square down at the bottom, okay? So it would be 18 squared. So if we put this into the calculator of 18 squared, let's see what we get here. That would give us 324, and that's not a multiply, that's a plus 324. 4, okay? So we have our formula here that says 1/2 times 72, which is the perimeter of this base here, of this square base here, okay? And then we have our S, which is the slant height, which should be an H, but it's not, it's an S, and that's what makes this more confusing. Plus the base, which our base is just the area of the bottom of the triangle, which is a square, so it's 18 squared. So if we put this into our calculator exactly like this, let's see what we come up with. So we're going to use our ND key and put in the half there, times, okay, so we're going to put in our half here, times 72 times 13.5 plus 324, and that would give us a surface area of 810, and I think we said this one was feet that we're dealing with. Okay, so this can get very, very confusing because of this PS and this B. So let's do one more of the surface area. Again, good news on this is that you won't have a ton of these surface area ones, but you may have 1 or 2 peppered throughout the test. So let's do one more of these. Okay, so I've changed a few numbers on here so that we can work this out differently and see what we come up with. So our formula is still the same. It does not change. It is our surface area equals half times P times S plus B. And remember, our P is the perimeter and the S is the side or the slant height, okay? So you can even put S in here if you want to, and you can put P in here if you want to, just to kind of remind you what we're looking at to get these figures, okay? Okay, so let's start working the formula here, and I'm going to use a different color. So we have half. Okay, we're just going to start bringing this down. Now our P is going to be our perimeter of this base down at the bottom, and that is 8 plus 8 plus 8 plus 8, and that's going to give us 32. So we're going to multiply it times 32 because that is the perimeter here, okay? Our S is going to be our slant length, okay, our slant height, or as they have it here, this is supposed to be an L. That's how they have it showing. It'll be an L, okay? So that's just going to be 6. And now we need to figure out the base, which we know from the last part of the video that the base is also going to be this figure here, but this is going to be 8 squared, right? Because we want the area of the base to add to this formula. And 8 squared is 64. So let's plug this into the calculator exactly like it is. So we have our ND key here to put us in our fraction mode. We're going to do 1/2 times 32 times 6, and then plus, don't forget that's a plus, not a multiply at the end, our 64. And we end up with 160. And in this case, this problem is yards squared. Okay, so we end up with a surface area of 160 for this pyramid. Now, the pyramid is very difficult because of the PS that's in there. You don't just plug these numbers in. You actually have to figure out a few numbers not numbers, you have to figure out a few of what these actually mean. So what we need to figure out, let me just make a quick note of this here so that you can copy it down, is on here, when you're looking at your formula, SA equals 1/2 P S plus B, okay? The P is going to equal the perimeter of the square. Let me rewrite that, square base. Okay, so it's side plus side plus side plus side is going to equal your P. Okay, and then your S is going to equal your L. Okay, so it's listed as L, but this can be slant height is what it's basically called. Okay, and then the last one, let me try to squeeze this down here. If you can see this, our base is going to be our side squared, because that is going to be the area of the square base. So that will be let me see if I can swing this down. Oh, let me see if I can swing this down so you can see it. Okay. All right. So hopefully that helps. Not really. Okay. So that's how we are going to work these sections here. You're going to have to figure out the P, and you're going to have to know that the P equals the slant height or the L in your picture. And then your B will be your side, which is your base. Okay, it'll be the area of the square base will be the side squared. So if you can know those and you can figure out how to figure these out, you should be fine. So that is your surface area and your volume of your pyramids. If you have any questions, let me know.